Let's tie an articulated copper john. We start with tenet red thread on a wiggle shank from Flyman Fish Company. Tying up at the front. This is going to be the abdomen section of our fly. Lay down a good base of thread. I like to fish this fly, especially this time of the year when some of the lakes have had an algae bloom. So visibility is critical. Now you'll see I've got a little bit of a bump of a thread there, and what I'm going to do is use that to help me flare out my goose biots. I've got some red goose biots, and they're going to be my tail. I probably should tie these on both at the same time, but yeah, this is how I did it today. As I was saying about the lakes this year, that algae bloom gets pretty nasty and they can't see it. Also, the fish are going deeper in order to escape that algae bloom so that they can get oxygen out of the water, because that algae really depletes the water of oxygen. So they're going deeper. This fly is obviously heavily weighted and will get down in there quickly. I trim off that excess goose biot. And now I'm just going to nail down the biots to the shank. I'm opening up my thread to flatten it out a bit to help make it smooth. Now I've got some red brassy thickness wire, ultra wire, that I'm going to tie in for the body, abdomen, body. I'm trying to keep the wire underneath the shank as much as possible. Now I'm going to try to build up the abdomen or body so it looks like a carrot and that it's got a taper to it. And you'll see I'll spin that thread to flatten it out. Now I'm just going to take my wire and wrap it from that tie-in point up to the front with concentric wraps. The trick here is to actually rub up against the prior wrap, and that's how you get your wire to get tight as possible. That, and if the underneath the underbody is fairly smooth, even though it is tapered. Tie off my wire. and helicopter the excess off. I used on this size, it's a 14 hook, on a brassy, I used 5¼ inches of brassy wire. So that gives you a good reference as to how much wire you're going to need. But on brassy, for about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch, 5 inches, 5¼ inches should be enough. I'm going to cut off the excess shank without cutting off the tail. Let me show you what it looks like. Now what I have here is a 20 Tiemco 2487, and I'm using a 2mm metallic red bead as the head. I'm going to switch up and I'm going to use 17/0 uni thread tied in right behind the bead. And I'm going to tie in a piece of 3/0 fluorocarbon tippet, and I'm going to use that as my hinge material. And what I'm doing is I'm crimping 2 crimp marks at the very tip, and then leaving a space of about 3/8 of an inch, and then crimping it again. And those 2 crimped places are going to be where are going to match up and create a loop for me. That's that first flat spot. Crimp. And then see that second one? I'm going to match those 2 up. I'm going to string my abdomen section on there first, though. Oh, I've forgotten to put in my little brace. So I've taken a piece of 17-pound mono, and I've put a little crimp in the middle. And what I'm going to do is use that as my brace or loop around for my hinge. And just figure eight that in. Right behind the eye, behind the bead. It actually, what happens is if the fish pulls on the abdomen section, the energy is transferred into the hook and not taken up all by the tippet. And I loop it around that forward brace is what I'm doing. Now take my abdomen, I'm going to string it through. One loop of thread, one wrap of thread, and then I'll pull back and match up those 2 flat spots. And see how it creates that loop? And that flat spot gives me more surface area so I get more contact and I get a stronger loop. So I come over the top, up over under the bottom and up over the top again, and then tie down that thread. And see if there's pressure put on that thread, it's going to go right into the hook. And it's just not the tippet. and the wraps holding the hinge. Trim off my excess right up against it. A little bit of super glue, not much. Now I just wipe off the excess because that's 5 times as much as it really needs, and it'll nail that baby down. This is a piece of number 16 Flashaboo off of a spool, and it's going to be my flashback. Then I've got a 1/8 inch wide piece of mottled brown medallion sheeting. It's going to be my wing case. Now I have a piece of red dyed peacock eyes. I like the stuff from Hairline because it still has its iridescence. Some of the other brands have gone to dyeing peacock, but the iridescence is gone. Now I realize I'm creating a bit larger back area, wing case area, than a normal copper john, but I just like the look of it, just to give it more breadth. Tie off my peacock curl. Now I've got a hen saddle feather, and I've cut a little V I've taken the fuzz off, and I've cut a little V. You can see that I cut a V out of there. And it's going to be my legs. Give you a peek at that. See that V I cut? Right at the stem. Pull the medallion sheeting up over the top. And then the Flashaboo. Trim off the excess with my nippers. And tie it off. Take a bit of UV resin. See how I got it going up over the bead? Magnifies the bead. And that's my articulated